Oh, you do the clap so you see your hand.
Yes. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Preferred Success Society podcast. I am joined by two amazing guests today, business affiliates of mine, locals, but most importantly, youth athletic parents that are dealing with a super high level of running businesses, being parents, but most importantly, like their kids are heavily involved in athletics, youth athletics. So Lane Manning, I'll start off with you. We'll come back. Karisa Milbauer will come back and have you guys introduce yourselves. But Lane, let's start with you. Who are you? What kind of sports are your kids into? What's some of your experience? Spit some knowledge on us.
Sure. Anytime I can spit knowledge, I appreciate, right? Lane Manning, Dream Lane Real Estate, Remax Preferred. I am a father of two healthy, beautiful young kids, 9 and 12, Reese and Miles. I intentionally keep them busy in stuff. If I'm relaxed and I'm at home thinking of a project, I'm like, all right, there's a problem. We got to have our kids do something, right? So right now, we got one in hockey. A state-bound hockey team, by the way.
State-bound,
and one in volleyball, and still training for winter soccer.
Right on. Those of you listening to this that may not be in South Central Wisconsin, that is where we're at. We're in the greater Madison, South Central Wisconsin area. Just FYI.
So Waha Bound.
Association. Sorry. It was, and might as well say it. Waha stands for
Wisconsin Amateur Hockey Association.
Excellent.
Is the governing body of youth hockey in the state of Wisconsin.
Rock and roll.
I just learned it like 6 months ago.
Right on. Well, so all right, Karisa, how about you? Where are you at? Kids and sports and everything else.
So I'm a mom of three great kids, ages 9, 12, and 14. The 14-year-old right now is playing on a travel basketball team and then also playing baseball. Starts in November, goes through the summer.
Oh, my.
And then the middle kid, he is 12 and is wrestling for 2 wrestling clubs and playing baseball right now. And then the younger one is on 2 hockey teams. And she is also going to state for her girls team.
Woo, woo. So we've got 2 state-bound hockey kids, right? I noticed there right at the end, and maybe people listening to this wouldn't have noticed, but you said her.
I did.
And I think that was something that I listened to you guys chat with a little bit beforehand. Something about, hockey being a little bit different than the other sports as far as the inclusion of women and females, and in general, it's different, right?
Definitely. So with my daughter, she has played, this is the first year that she's playing on a girls team. So she's able to dual roster this year. So she has to pick a primary team. And her primary team is her co-ed team at this during this season.
Cool.
And so, but normally she has to play with boys because girls don't have very many opportunities to play. So she's had some really great coaches that have developed her into a great player for who she is versus just putting her in a position just because she's a girl. Because normally girls play defense.
Sure.
If you look at all the rest of the teams, not necessarily all the rest of the teams in the area, but if you travel around and you play elite hockey anywhere, you'll notice if they have girls on their team that they're usually in a defensive position.
Interesting. And obviously, that's changing with coaches like that.
Right. So as more coaches come on and more coaches have daughters, the girls programs are starting to get more prevalent. And Waha, actually, this is a 2-year program where they're allowing girls to dual roster, trying to build up their girls programs because in the past it's been a male dominated sport. And so my daughter is the only one in my family that plays hockey. And she absolutely loves it. She's obsessed. She even reads hockey magazines. She watches video clips about different players, and she watches kids that play at intermissions at like the professional games. And she loves Blackhawks and loves going to their games.
Awesome.
And so she's all over hockey in every
aspect
of it.
Well, like Lane, with your experience, so this is not your first trip to state. And
it is.
It is. Oh, your first.
Just talking about both
of you guys' first trips to state. How many years? It sounded to me anyway like kids are around the same age. What, I guess, kind of topics or things do you think? I mean, are the most either critical or, the things in this, you being a parent and having to manage this for all your kids. What are some of the challenges that you guys are facing as parents that you think maybe even just a little chat or a conversation here about it could help, other parents and other things that are going on with trying to juggle the schedules, the teams, the sponsoring, the fundraising? I mean, it seems to be scary to a lot of parents, or whatever. And then obviously once you're in it and everything else, it's probably like, well, it's not scary. It's actually crazy, but you now have
It's terrifying.
but you're getting it,
It's terrifying.
but you're getting it wrangled. So what are some things that maybe you could share there?
So real quick, before I get to that, let me touch on something Karisa said. One of my favorite things about hockey is its inclusion of women. And at different sports, she's right. When you get to the higher end, elite level, generally women are going to be on the defensive side. But my son's team was put into state by 2 women. Fried up a bacon, take it to a pan. Because I'm a woman, they took the puck and scored in an overtime game to send us to state.
Awesome.
I love that about the sport. Miles has been playing. Randomly got him into it by accident at 3, and those 2 girls he's played with the entire time, so they know each other really well. They're C's. Her daughter's an A, and it does change as you get down. That's that quality level thing.
Sure.
But one of my favorite parts about that is they have women in there. And I always joke that male, female, alien, I don't care what color you are, can you skate and how fast? And we'll put you on a team somewhere, right? Sure. And the cool thing about that dual rostering thing she was talking about, it's a pretty good value for a small period of time. Girls are allowed to play twice. You can't put a price on the ice time. The better skaters skate more. Just is what it is, because ice is a shrinking commodity, or it's a thing you need, right? It's
not readily available everywhere, every corner, on every street, right?
Exactly. Most of these rinks now, with the growth of it, are trying to add second sheets of ice, which is just an expensive proposition, just period, right? It's a long time fundraising goal. At this moment in time, girls can literally play 2 times, and it's not a dramatic amount of money extra to have them on 2 different teams, I don't think, is it?
No. So for the girls team, it was actually only a couple $100. I think it was less than $300 to be on the girls team. Whereas if you're talking about actually being on the other teams, it can be thousands of dollars. So if she were to play on a club team, it could be upwards of $4,000 just for your club fees. It could be even more than that. And then with all your travel, you're going to end up spending over $10,000.
Well, so here's the deal. Now you're scaring the crap out of people. So,
but we don't do.
There you go.
We don't do that because I don't want to spend that kind of money on.
Okay. And you don't have to.
But you don't have to. There's other options out there. So we play the local. We play local rec, where she's able to play with the local kids, and where we live, we don't have an offering, so we go to a nearby rink, and that's where she plays. So she's able to play hockey in those areas. But it's definitely not as expensive. You're looking at right around $1,000, or even a little bit under $1,000 for their age group, which is
as much ice time.
Which you get a lot more ice time. But the level of commitment for the girls team, it's not that much. So we have 2 practices a month, and then we play in 10 different games through the season. Plus you have your state tournament if you're able to make it to state. Versus
a regular team, or whatever. How many days a week are they practicing usually? And
so we practice 2 days a week on the ice. Some programs have off ice training as well. We don't, where she plays. And then they can play up to 4 games during the weekend, just around the area.
Got it. Yep. They try to get them all in when everybody's at the rinks and everything else or whatever.
Yep.
Lane, what do you, good call. And by the way, I always like to add too, I was the last all male basic training to go through Fort Benning, Georgia, when I was in the United States Army. Yeah, in 1999. Now, here's what's cool, or what I always thought was cool. Buses of women showed up like it was the 50s or something. At least that's what it felt like to me,
Sure. What year was this?
Yeah, 1999. And, women were showing up for the first time. Well, I had spent then my first, stint in the military with all men. And it was, interesting. Went off to advanced training, and was in advanced training for many more weeks than I was in basic training, and was integrated then with females. And it was awesome because we did have, I didn't have any female battle buddies for the first 14 months I was in the Army, because we didn't see any. And other people that had gone elsewhere did. They did have females where they went to basic training or whatever. We just happened to be one of the last ones. And but it was so interesting because I had the same kind of relationship with my female battle buddies that I did most of my male battle buddies. And I think people would think it'd be radically different, and it really isn't. So I think the environment has a lot to do with it. And obviously hockey is a good environment. Everybody's like, hey, you're all going to get beat up. You're all doing this together. You know, I think that's where teams come into play. But I just wanted to mention that because I think it's cool because I didn't realize that about hockey. So.
Yeah. I was in the Army in 1992. And I remember when I did my PT test, there was this girl I had to beat.
Yeah.
I did not want to get beat by the fastest
So
girl.
yes.
Right?
Yep.
And so that was 92. So you, Fort Benning's Grunts, right? So that's generally why you didn't have women there. But yeah, I was a 92 Victor. So it was warehouse and procurement. So we were always integrated right from the beginning. And I hated trying to run with her. So
but it's interesting having two daughters and you guys, having daughters and then having the whole, well, you don't want to get beat by the girl thing.
Yes.
Well, in hockey, these girls are sticking it to them and scoring on them and everything. I think that's got to be good for the boy hockey players. I mean, it's got to be good for them.
So one of the things, I'm not a hockey purist. I played basketball, football, and baseball. Like I said, our club treasurer happened to have a son the same age as my son. We went to the same daycare, so we saw each other at 8 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. And one day he was like, "Hey, why don't you come? We're having an open house Saturday." This is when the whole club buying the equipment thing started.
Okay.
So it was a $50 down payment. You can use the equipment as long as you want.
I think that's what a lot of people are going to kind of want to know, because obviously that's changed a lot in the last 10 years in like youth athletics in general, but it's probably changed the most in hockey, or maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, every club around our area especially has a surplus of stuff that they can give you for a nominal fee. I think we're down actually $35 now.
Wow.
For your rental, you get a bag and all this stuff, and it's not top line stuff, but it's all you need, especially when those kids are not a skate. So that's how we started. And I didn't know. I always tell people I was a Red Wings fan growing up in Michigan, meaning I watched the Red Wings, the Stanley Cup. I'm 46, so the Stanley Cup was always in Michigan every other year. So I knew that much about hockey, kind of like Packer fans.
They were dominating.
Yep, women Packer fans here. They don't know anything about the rest of the NFL, but we know the Packers are winning, right?
Right.
So I had to learn this. And one of the things I really enjoyed learning about hockey, especially here, because you got the Badger program so strong, the difference between high-level women's hockey and high-level men's hockey. Women aren't supposed to check. So they have to put a premium on stick handling and skating.
Interesting.
It's about skills. And I mean, they are fast. Because they can't just separate you from the puck, right?
Sure.
So if you go watch the Badger men play, it's a great experience. You're going to see one thing. If you go watch the Badger women play, it's a whole different thing.
Interesting.
And if you watch the Olympics,
physical though.
It
is still a physical game.
Yeah,
regardless of what you think, it is still a physical game. Even though they can't check, it's definitely physical.
Well, and when you look at
they're still leaning on it. You still have to have the strength. You still have to do everything.
It's the same difference between the NBA and the WNBA. Right. We see a lot more 3-point shooting going on in the WNBA than we do, close basket shooting, dunks, things like that. I mean, that's just It's always been the way. It's always been the thing.
Right. And you kind of touched a little bit on like the whole like boys don't like it when a girl beats them, right?
Yeah,
so my daughter being an A-type player, right? She's always had her stick taped pink. And she has a long ponytail down her back, and playing with the boys. The boys don't like to see that pink stick come in. Well, she finally changed it this year. They are actually her entire team
trying to get her to assimilate, huh?
Their entire team actually taped their stinks green this year because one of the dads on the team has he was diagnosed with lymphoma over the season, and so in support of him and to show their support, they taped their sticks green as the color for lymphoma.
Well, I'm all for the ponytail at the back, kind of accentuating, that it's a female. And I'll point out 2 other ones, and I see it in 2 other places in my world, which are snowboarding, skiing, downhill skiing, and hunting. Yep. Predominantly not necessarily male sport on the skiing and snowboarding thing, but it's a big thing right now to have the pigtails and or the ponytails come out the sides of your helmet. Right about here, and whatever, and because then people know it's a female flying down the hill, like whatever. I think it's a pride thing, which is great. And then same thing with hunting. Although with hunting, you've got the group of females that are like, I don't want the pink stuff. I'm no different than any other hunter. Blah 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 blah. Versus the group that are like, I don't want blaze orange. I want blaze pink.
Right.
I want a pink rifle. I want a pink this, or whatever.
Right.
So I think that's cool that that exists in the hockey world too. So
No, and it does. And so my daughter, she's played on boys teams where she's been the only girl on that team. For spring and fall, she made a team that was an all boys team. And she was really nervous about being on that team at first, just because it's all boys. There's no other girls. And so we had the conversations, like, be the girl that you are, be who you are, do the things that you like to do. Don't be afraid to show who you are.
Yep.
And so we had these conversations, and I told her, I said, you know what, you can do so much more than what the boys can because you're a girl. So we just have those conversations.
That's
and
good.
So it's
Part of the lessons.
Yeah, it is. And I think that really empowered her. And after we had that conversation, she really started to come out of herself, because she was really timid and she wasn't playing like she normally plays. She was backing off because it was almost like she was afraid to show that she could do that, because she was the only girl
she
on the
wanted to
team.
fit in.
Right.
And fitting in sometimes, you don't want to draw too much attention to yourself. As Lane probably remembers from the Army, they were always like, you don't want to be first and you definitely don't want to be last, so it was probably the same thing. She's like, man, I want to check all these guys on the team and put them in their place on the first day. They won't let me into their, they won't let me into their little club maybe or something. Maybe that's what she was fearing. But did you have any like specific, instances that you can remember, or a specific time where you thought she did a good job of just, I don't know, being a girl when maybe the situation didn't present itself? Or
Well, I always find it best when so on those top teams, right? When a girl comes in and beats them, and you have the pink stick that comes in, and then she turns around and there's a blonde ponytail going down her back, right? These little boys, they get so upset because they're little boys, right? I'm not trying to classify it. It's just that they don't like to be beat by a girl in any sport. And so she would draw a lot of penalties. And she was the only one on her team that would draw a lot of penalties, because she'd go take the puck from some other kid, and he'd get mad and he'd come up and cross check her or anything like that. But then
little retaliation jolts and everything. Yeah.
But she'll retaliate as well. So she just does it a little bit smarter.
Girls hockey. Literally, that's the difference in girls.
Why is their hockey hockey strategy starting to sound just like marriage does later? They're so different, oh boy.
Yeah, she plans hers. She waits until the play is away from her before she retaliates, and then she'll cross check at someone. And then she won't get caught, but that kid will, because he's not waiting until the play leaves. And so I don't know. It's fun to watch, and it benefits her team. And I guess that's one specific example.
Right on.
That she just draws a lot of penalties just for the type of player that she is. She's a forward. She can play defense, but she's so much better at forward because she attacks the puck. She attacks the goal. She just fights for it.
So knowing how your kids play and, whatever, what is, I want to transition into something that the people listening to this, can take. What is something from this world, being a parent that is in youth sports with their kids? It's obviously extremely demanding. However, you're still doing it. You both enjoy doing it. I know you talk about it regularly and everything else. What are some things maybe you want other people to know that maybe you didn't know going into, helping coach, ride sharing, fundraising, what are some things that you want other people to know that maybe will help them out?
Sure. So I did an interview for News 3, 58 News 3, whatever it is, News Now,
a couple
right?
Weeks ago, yeah.
It was, the whole article was about, it's a bigger article and it's more than just me. I was the parent aspect of it.
Sure.
And we talked about costs. All I did was focus on the cost. I kind of tried to change it to be focused on the investment you make in your kids, right? That's how I look at it. There's a lot of that interview that was cut out. A lot of it.
Sure.
They had other people and soccer and blah, blah, and all youth sports are great. But I told him the story, and he's like, why? Because in the Verona rink, there's a sponsorship that Remax helps me with.
Yeah.
Sponsor the rink. He's like, do the music. Every time our kids get a shutout, I buy them ice cream. It's just something they know. A legal shutout because they got a 0-0 tie in a tournament. I was like, oh, heck no. Forget that. Right? A winning shutout.
Yeah.
The way I looked at it, and I said this story. When I was a kid, this kind of goes back to me not knowing much about hockey, getting it right. When I was a kid, my dad got me in 4-H. We lived in a rural area around pig farms, had Amish neighbors. We got in 4-H. And I didn't really know what it was, right? I just know you get to have a sheep. At the time, it was a sheep. My first one was a little lamb, 2 little lambs. And you work with them, showmanship, and you take them to the fair, and you show them, and you get a ribbon. Well, that's when he started teaching me about performance and how to do things. And there's a lot of economics in it, too, because you don't really realize this until I was in my mid-20s. For 9-10 years, I was in 4-H. We graduated from sheep to pigs. They're more lucrative and a little more fun. But every year, my dad bought me 3 pigs. And I had to work with these pigs, and they grew. And if they're growing, you got to feed them. So my dad bought food, and obviously it's a living animal, so you got to have veterinary stuff. So someone's got to transport them, or the vet's got to come to you, or whatever.
Investment.
And at the end of the summer, you sold them at the fair. You went and showed them, got your showmanship badges, your placement badges, whatever, and then you sold them in a market, and you got that money. Then my dad never asked me for the money. It was in my bank account. That's my first semester of college and my first car.
Wow. That's cool.
But he bought 3 pigs and food and vet every year for 10 years. Never threw it in my face, never talked about it, but that's what kind of hockey is. And I didn't realize it until you get into it a little bit. You're like,
I really like that you just said, though, he never said anything about it.
No, just did it. And
I know for a fact I've already used against my own daughter for karate, like more than once, where I'm like, I'm picking you up and dropping you off. Yep. I'm doing X, Y, and Z. How come your essay isn't done? Your black belt essay.
I didn't say he didn't leverage it.
Oh, okay, good deal.
I just said he didn't. Tim, it was happy to spend the money. You got this money. This is how it works. You got to take care of your lamb. And then there's always stuff in that 10 years, right? Just like I'll get to it in a second, hockey, but someone's sheep broke their leg. We had a situation where the lamb was climbing up a tree, biting the thing, broke his leg. Well, you can't show a broken leg animal. That guy was screwed. So I gave him my market market animal that year, right? You help out where you can. Someone got sick, they need help milking their cows.
That was your team.
That was the team. Thank you, the team. And that's what hockey is. Our kids are still a little bit little, but they have to work eventually let the work open skate. Take the money, hand out skates, fit them properly.
Work the rink, do what they need to do.
Yep, there's one of the kids. So for state, I'm trying to get one of the high school kids to come down and talk. My son holds this one high school kid on a pedestal because he helped him out at one of the stick handling camps over the summer. Right, he's his
hero now.
Yep, they all had to make popcorn. So I couldn't find 4-H here. Not saying I couldn't, it just wasn't in the position to do it.
Sure.
Hockey turned into that thing, family. And the sport of hockey, when you actually get into it, it's all. My son's a goalie, unlike her daughter who's a forward. My son's a goalie, so. Goalie parent, you need the other 5 to help. Right? Huge part of it. Like I know he gets credit for the shutout, but it's because they didn't keep shots away from him. The forwards kept the puck over there. Right. The best day in the world is on my Facebook page was a post to my kid. It was a lower ranked team, 15-0. He had 0 shutouts. We won, and it's just him out here making snowballs. That's the best day ever. I know he hates it, but that means he did a phenomenal job and didn't really have to do a job.
Right.
No, those are those lessons, and then those the games when he lets one in by accident. He made a bad choice, anticipated wrong, and his teammates had to pick him back up. You guys need to go score a goal, for him.
You got to get this done together. Yeah,
exactly, and that it is such a together sport. I don't know if you'd agree or not, but it is seriously a together sport, right? The super fast ones, someone's got to clear away.
Well, I know from the outside as a non-hockey player in school, where we did have a hockey team, and then being in the military later, the hockey team definitely had the best camaraderie. They had the best. So, because I played football, I played basketball, and I was tight with my team, but they were tight with the whole program. Right. So like the seniors were, definitely looking out for the freshman hockey players, and stuff like that. Whereas I don't think I could say that about basketball. I mean, certainly,
it's a different level. You don't know it going in. You can't explain it. But when you're in it, you're like, oh, okay. Yep. I get it. And there's no words, there's no contract or anything. Sure. It's just, and like our game, we all went and watched the A's. Why? Because we wanted them to win, right? It's a different. They make a division, A, B, C, on your talent level, but all of them are still good. All of them have a chance to compete for state. At first, you feel like it. Actually, we can talk about that too, right? The whole evaluation process, that was totally new to me, right? So up until this point, your kid gets a team.
So to tell people, at what point do they
squirt?
Yeah. And what age is that?
I don't know what age.
9 years old.
9 and 10, right?
9 and 10.
Okay, 9 and 10.
9 and 10. So ours is 09 and 2010 and 2011 birth year. No.
2009 year and
2010. birth years, right?
Got it.
So it's the first level where they actually, before it's just here, randomly pick a team. You're this or that or this. I guess it can be a little bit red, white, and blue, but it's not as crazy. This year they actually go through a full evaluation process. You watch them. There's, third parties up in the mezzanine looking down at your kid because your kid's just wearing a blank jersey with a number, and he's doing these skills, and he's supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and da 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 da. And
Interesting.
then the day you get, I remember distinctively because you've played with all these kids, and some of them you haven't played with in 2 years, right? Because
they were
out
somewhere
for
else.
a year.
Sure.
So they're second year squirts. Our kids are first year. So going for a year. And the thing came out on a Sunday morning. I was in the bed. My son came. He's like, I'm on the C. Sadly, I'm on the C team. I'm like, that doesn't matter. Like, you're still going to go for a state title. Go do the best you can, right?
Go do the best you can.
And that's kind of fast forwarding. He was sad. He didn't think the girl, beautiful girl, who's the B goalie, great friend of ours too, but he didn't think he should have lost her. And I was like, well, why do you think that? What? Again, here's our lesson. Why do you think that was? Well, I'm like, no, they told you what to do. She did it. You didn't.
You didn't. Yeah.
Lesson learned. If you get told what to do, don't not do it, right? And then you fast forward, and again, those kids you don't know, our first year, you don't know about the chemistry. Our kids started winning games. And they started winning games. And before you know it, they're playing for a state. And I'm like, this is the point. This is why you give it. And next year, we're going to start all over. I don't want to hear your mouth. You're going to start all over. They're going to tell you what to do. Hopefully you do it.
Right.
And you'll see where you end up then. And then you got to create new chemistry with a different team. Right. All your buddies will be second year.
But they're not cut.
Right? No. That's the beauty, right?
That's the beauty.
Cuts.
I mean, somebody's going to play somewhere, and they just want to make sure that those levels, they're giving everybody the best opportunity they can to play with the level that they should be playing with, basically. Yeah. I mean, as far as like,
because your kids.
So our kids play in 2 different programs too. Yeah. So the girls program, they practice in Verona, and then my daughter plays. So my daughter plays for Oregon. His son plays for Verona, in their local programs.
Got it.
And so their program has a lot of depth.
Before you get there, you're in Mount Horeb.
No, I'm in New Glarus.
Sorry, you're New Glarus. It doesn't naturally have a program.
No, so that's why we're able to play. So we could go to Verona. We could go to
sure.
Go to Oregon. We could go to Monroe. There's a lot of options that we have to go to, just because we don't have an offering for hockey where we live.
Well, I know when I grew up, Oregon and McFarland, so we shared a hockey team, which is why we ended up having friends with McFarland kids in my classes, or whatever. Now both schools have their own rinks,
right?
So they're splitting.
And so even if I lived in Verona, I wouldn't necessarily have to be part of the Verona program, but they would have to release my daughter to go play somewhere else. Whereas right now, I don't believe that that's the case. From my understanding, I don't believe that's the case. We are able to go kind of where we want to go.
And the rec leagues are typically just centered around maybe one of the bigger rinks that are, like the Madison rinks or the rinks that are just they're open more days of the year and stuff like that.
So each rink has like an area that they are in, that the kids that live in that specific area have to go to that rink or go to that program.
Sure.
And so it's all set up in area, and it's all done through Waha. That's my understanding of the way that it goes. And so all rinks are not open year round. Some are, some are not.
Got it.
And so, but there's so many different programs and clinics and different things that you can do. If you live in an area that doesn't have a rink that's open year round, for instance, if you go up, I don't know if Sauk does, but I know that Reedsburg is not a rink for year round. It's not all year round.
Just not enough population density for them, probably.
I don't know what it is, or just the facilities and stuff like that. Their rink is pretty much in a barn, and if it's -12 outside, it's going to be -12 in the building. It is so cold.
Well, just the communities, right?
Money and certainly time, right? I mean, how long a program's existed for? It takes a long time to build a program if there wasn't one there. Things like that.
But there are. So Reedsburg, you have the Dells. You could go to the Dells. I think the Dells has ice year round, but there's so many different programs and clinics that if you wanted your child to be involved in the sport year round, or if your child wanted to be involved, I shouldn't say you wanted your child to be involved, because that's not right. You do what your kids want, right?
Absolutely.
So like, if they don't want to play, then I wouldn't put my daughter into something. And so, but there's so many programs and stuff like that you can do all year round that if
For any age group.
for any age group, pretty much. Well, I shouldn't say any age group, but when you get down 6 and under,
Spotty.
you're pretty limited there.
Sure.
But I would say once you get to be a mite, which is what are the ages for mites? 7. Well, it's basically 8U.
Got it.
So
Under 8.
Yeah, under 8.
So a lot of people, I mean, if I were to just throw an average out there, would you say a lot of people start their kids in hockey somewhere between 5 and 6, 7 years old on average, like when people started, or is it just all across the board?
So all the kids that Elia plays with right now started when they were younger. However, that's why you have the different levels. You have the A, you have the B, you have the C teams. And just because those kids make the B or the C team doesn't mean that they're not good. It just means that
maybe they've only been playing for 2 years.
It just means that they're not as experienced as other kids probably are. Or maybe they don't have the tenacity or the drive to do that. They're out there for fun and just to play the sport.
Less competitive.
Versus the competitiveness of it. There's a lot of different aspects that kind of go on to the team building and placements and stuff like that. So
do you guys have any advice for, other parents, things like that, in regards to like, as your kids were going through some of that? I know you kind of touched on telling your daughter to be herself and some things like that, but you guys have any specific advice for parents that are going to have to deal with like, hey, you're going to have to go in there and just do your best. And some people are going to be a lot better than you, and some people aren't going to be as good as you, but like, what's the best advice you give?
Just it's not about like I mentioned back that story about when he came in and he was on the sea. I'm like, it doesn't matter, dude. Like it literally does not matter. Right. If you're going to make, down the road, like work on that. You can get coaching, you can get training, you can spend as much as you want. There are teams and programs out there that you can attest to that charge thousands of dollars, like upwards of $5,000 or $6,000 a year and travel out of state. Those are the higher quality kids. If you want that, go for it.
But you don't have to do that kind of stuff. That's the thing. You don't have to do that. And if your kids don't make specific teams, those are the conversations that you have to them. Well, now you know where you can be, right? You've seen these players, and if you want to be on that team, then
how much work you've got to do.
Let's set goals. And regardless of what sport you play in, you're going to have the ups and downs emotionally of everything. And so you can set goals, or your kids can set goals for themselves. And whether they make those goals or not, you have those conversations, and it really it's real life experience, right?
Well,
let me set goals in your real life.
let me wrap up with this question then, though, because I think this is going to be a little bit better. Instead of advice for kids, or how you would deal with the kid aspect, is there any advice that you want to give other parents on how to deal with other parents, how to deal with the programs without getting into too much detail? But like, you guys have probably seen a lot, over the years, and I'm sure, you just described, being kind of a part of a big family and all that. So I know too, some of these programs could certainly be intimidating for new parents too. Be like, are we going to be accepted in here? Like, do we have to hang out and spend money for a lot of years before people are going to start being nice to us? Like, any comments about kind of that side of things, like being the parent? And I don't know.
I think it's all about just having fun, right? Watching your kids develop and get better and do all that. So advice for parents, don't be crazy. Don't be the crazy parent on the sidelines or in the stands or whatever. So
don't be so hypercritical of your kid's individual performance.
Well,
right?
don't be hypercritical of everybody, right? So let the coaches do their thing and let them coach your kids, and then
no, that's what that kind of advice that I wanted. Like, that goes for probably every sport.
Right.
Let the coaches do their job. And if you really don't think the coaches are doing a good job, change teams, or whatever.
Exactly.
Right?
And so you can do that. Just go where your kid fits in as well. So we have, we play soccer too. My daughter plays soccer, and she has struggled to find a team that fits her.
Sure.
Because where we live, she's basically forced to be on a girls team. Well, she doesn't do well with playing with just girls because they play at a slower pace that at her age group they play
Sure.
at a slower pace
And where she's at.
than where she wants to be.
Right.
So she's a very type A personality kind of kid. And so she fights for everything. And so if you're in a program and it doesn't work for your child, then find a program that does work for your child.
Don't force it.
Exactly. Don't force the issue. And basically just it's all about fun. So we were talking earlier before we started this about how going to tournaments, it's almost like being in college again, right?
Doing the traveling thing, staying at a hotel.
Where you stay in the hotels and you just have fun, right? I think those are the types of experiences that really bring the teams together.
Traveling together.
Because you spend so much time with all these families and all these parents throughout the entire season that they become almost your family within the organization.
For sure.
And you start doing things not only at the rink or on the field or wherever. So we travel a lot for baseball. We travel a lot for every sport that my kids play in, which is totally crazy. Don't get me going on that one.
we do not have we don't have time on this podcast for a calendar check with these two, or whatever. But I will say that I've watched yours more than Lane's calendars evolve over the last few years. And I would say that this is my advice from a parent looking at the outside. My kids are a little bit younger and not in the same sports as them. I'm extremely nervous, when it comes to adding those schedules. So my advice to a parent who's looking at putting their kids into youth sports and having to run them all around and doing all those things, it doesn't all hit all at once. It comes on slowly. I wouldn't say you're going to get used to it, but certainly it'll get easier to manage and organize and keep everything together and whatnot. And then that's too where I know I've made the suggestion and been given the suggestion too. That's where that family, that sports family kind of does come into play. Parents start picking each other's kids up, helping each other out, covering for this, dropping somebody off, those kind of things. Lane, I'm sure the families, the fundraisers, everything that you guys do together now, to keep the team going, right? What would you give? What's your parting advice for parents?
Again, we were talking earlier about my that interview for CBS I did. I kind of came to this realization earlier this year that my two favorite sports are hockey and volleyball. Normally, I wouldn't have gotten either one of those two, but I love them because they're the most bang for your buck. You get the most activity, most time. Speaking specifically to hockey, a rink has one door in, one door out. Everyone is watching your child. Everyone is a mini parent of your child. In the locker room, when they're stupid, you give 9-year-old boys sticks, shenanigans are going to happen. Every dad,
girls too, right?
There's an unwritten rule. Every dad you have the permission to uncleat my son if he does something stupid. And what I like about that is there's a lot of kids who don't have dads. They don't have a dad to uncleat them. You do. You have 10 other hockey dads that are going to uncleat you when you do something stupid, and your coaches, right?
Nice.
Again, back to that whole family thing, right?
Family parenting, man. It takes a village, right? It takes a village.
I had a farmer that would uncleat me all day when I did something stupid, right?
It's funny you're bringing this up because this is not like down to sports.
No,
this was my neighborhood growing up.
Exactly.
And I would argue, and I've lived in 4 neighborhoods since the neighborhood I grew up in. And I grew up with her husband, actually, which is hilarious.
Funny.
We got chewed out, yelled at, grounded by, not necessarily grounded by, but phone call to our parents, immediately grounded by, by other parents weekly.
Right.
And my second to last neighborhood that I was in, I could see from my front stoop 50 some odd homes from my front stoop, if I counted rooftops and everything. And I knew 2 neighbors, maybe 3. And if you didn't yell at you don't yell at anybody else's kid, you don't even talk to them, or whatever. So that's really changed. But in sports, it's still there. So that part, man, it does take a village. Right.
And then when you're talking about the parents, like, listen, we all sell real estate for a living, right?
Yeah.
There's no way we're going to get non-crazy sellers. There's no way we're going to get non-crazy.
You can't have non-crazy people in your life if you're dealing with people, right? If we're dealing with people, we're dealing with people.
And youth sports is an emotional powder keg. So you try to do the best you can with kids. We've had meetings. We've had in trouble. We've gotten in trouble in the locker rooms and said stuff and et cetera. You do the best you can. I look at those as life lessons as well, right? If someone does something stupid, like, what was the problem there, son our daughter.
Right.
Right.
What are we learning from this today?
Exactly. Right. And so our goal this year, we don't want to have a meeting. There's a couple of meetings that had happened last year. We were like,
are those meetings? And by the way, I was punished a lot in the military with physical stuff, but then I do remember having to run lines in basketball a lot.
Mountain climbers, yep.
And then whatever. What's the one for hockey? Is it also lines but on skates?
Yep, mountain climbers. Top of the circle back, red line back, blue line back.
All the way back.
Oh, you got words? Okay, do it one more time faster.
It was my favorite part about boot camp, to be honest with you. Like, when I would smile and they'd be like, "You think this is funny?" And now it's really going to hurt. And I'd keep smiling, or whatever. I don't know. I was a glutton for punishment, but yeah, fun stuff.
But parents can't do those mountain climbers.
Yeah, right.
So they have meetings for parents.
Right.
I guess when parents need to be put in check.
Yeah.
So, well,
One more thing before you ask about questions, just go ask, go get involved, get involved in your kid's life. That's kind of the whole point, right? Just go be there. One of my favorite things, we didn't talk about this and we don't have to, that's a whole nother tangent, could be a whole nother movie, is equipment, right? Yeah. So kind of going back to that hockey thing, and I hate going back to hockey because all youth sports are important. They're all amazing, but there's certain little things I learned, right?
Well, and you got a goalie on your hands. So equipment's a whole nother world for you, right?
But even skates. So basketball, soccer, football, we all go to Dick's, put on some cleats. Okay, they fit, work, great.
Right.
Skates are a whole different ballgame, man. There's all these rules. You don't want to buy new skates at first because there's plenty of new ones out there. But literally, when you buy skates, you bake them to the kid's foot. You heat them up, put his foot in there, let them cool down because they're made of plastic.
Sure.
So the next version of that isn't going to be as good, right? The next kid's foot might not fit, but you don't want to spin the skate. There's all these little questions, all these little things you gotta work on and think about. In hockey, it makes it kind of special, right?
I think the equipment thing for me, what blows my mind is when I'm thinking back from school is I didn't have to I played football. There was equipment involved. Basketball, we needed new jerseys once. And I think we did a little bit of a fundraiser for that.
Yeah.
But aside from that, it was like everything was kind of paid for back then, and now I look at the burden on you guys and myself too, now included.
So you're gumming, buddy.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it's all going to start to mount up, but like we're having to just subsidize so much of this. And I agree with you. That's a whole nother, the financing of both the equipment, the programs, the arenas. It's another conversation for another day, but it's not a reason to stay away from this stuff, obviously.
No.
And it shouldn't scare, in my opinion, it shouldn't scare parents because, and I agree with you. So last night, I typically on one night of the week would just drop my daughter off at karate. She does a 30-minute class with her team on this certain night. And then I would pick her back up. She'd jump back in the truck and we go home. And I would usually just work on my laptop or do something in the car constructive. Last night I decided to go in and be present. Like you can't really do anything but sit there and stare at them doing their karate. But I know it makes a huge difference to all kids out there when they see their parent there watching them versus just running them to wherever. And don't get me wrong, we all have to do that. We got to drop our kids for practice and be doing something else or whatever, especially us. We're running businesses. We have to do it. We have to do our work when we can do our work.
Yeah.
But I would say, man, I hope parents, like you said, even if don't be afraid of the finances, don't be afraid of the chaos, the craziness, whatever.
I forgot my thought. It's like, my point there was at our kids' age, maybe a lot is different, but you have to tie their skates. You have to be there to make sure this gets done. It's not like you can just slip into a pair of basketball shoes and someone, usually coaches or parents, whoever's around,
has to help.
Has to lace these skates up to make sure it's done, because a loose skate, you can't skate on it. It's got to be tight, got to be done right. And that at their age, they can't do it very well yet.
Sure.
I always enjoy that time. I bitch about it. I'm grumpy.
Yes.
But deep down inside, I don't mind.
Yeah. Right? 3 days a week, I drop my kids off to school and I complain about getting up because it takes so much time. I drop them at 3 different schools. It's just nuts, right? Or whatever. Right. But it's my time with them. And if I can make that time in the car good, I can make that time lazy. I can make that time whatever I want. So I guess that's what we'll leave it with. And again, for everybody that was listening and watching and everything else, we've got Lane Manning with Remax Preferred. We also have Karisa Milbauer with Remax Preferred. They have been our amazing guests today. We'll put their information down below. Hit them up on Instagram or one of the other Facebook places, LinkedIn, wherever. Hit them up. Maybe you have questions. Maybe you're a local professional that's wanting to network. Maybe you're a parent that's got questions about hockey or some other sport or whatever. But thanks for sharing everything that you shared today. I'm sure somebody's going to get something great out of it. And we'll see you guys all again next time. This has been a really, really sweet and awesome episode of the Preferred Success Society podcast. You're supposed to have a really nice little recording that does your intros and outros instead of doing them live like this, but I like them live like this anyway.
Dude.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Next time you tune in, hey, the Preferred Success Society, we're just all about interviewing some people, trying to gain some knowledge from other folks that are doing things that are challenging, improve our lives, learn a few things, and maybe laugh along the way. Talk to you later.
Where's the music?
In the feed. Done.
Done.
So where can I get the raw?